Welcome to the ParentsAware.info podcast. I am your host, Marilyn Evans. This is where you are going to find an open and honest dialogue about the health impact pornography is having on children and teens in society today. Let's get started. On today's episode, I'm going to be joined by my good friend Bonnie.
Marilyn, how are you?
Good. And we're going to talk, we're going to bake first. And as we're baking, we're going to talk about what makes it such a challenge for individuals to overcome compulsions or addictions, even bad habits, especially as it relates to pornography.
Great. Let's get started.
All right.
I've always wanted to do a cooking show.
Fantastic. Just before we get into the baking, I want to let everyone know why we came about to bake banana bread. And this banana bread in particular has no sugar in it. And the reason it has no sugar is because I have just announced to the world, if you saw my post last week, that I am not having any sugary sweets of any kind. And I was so excited to tell you this when I saw you. And the reason I'm doing it is not a diet. It's not for health reasons so much as for compassion and understanding. So I have a young person that I am working with who is struggling with an addiction to pornography or a compulsion to use pornography. And that young person has done really well and then not so well. And I for the whole journey that we've been together, I thought, what can I do to really understand what it's like to give up pornography? Because I haven't had this addiction. I haven't had a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction, and I don't even drink coffee. So it's really hard for me to understand what it's like to give up something. So I decided the only thing I really crave is sugar. And you said,
Well, it's really interesting because that just brought back a memory for me because about 10, 15 years ago, I was also working with a young person. I work with youth a lot, and I was working with a young person who had an addiction to pornography. And, we had talked about it for, endlessly about, what the problem was and how it came to be and, how he could stop. And the thought came to me that I had no right to ask that person, that young friend, to give up their addiction, to overcome their addiction, if I couldn't overcome my addiction to sugar. And so at that point, that's when I decided no more sugar for me. It's quite a long story, but I'll shorten it because I relapsed many times. So it helped me to understand what a person with addictions, specifically to pornography, goes through and how hard it is to overcome and recover from it.
yeah, I've been recognizing the same thing. Like I've gone a whole 2.5 weeks now. And I'm not exclusively sugar-free, but it's those triggers, those sugary snacks and things that were my go-to that I've eliminated. But as soon as you give those up, oh my goodness, you just see it everywhere.
Absolutely.
Or you feel it.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's the same intensity, but at least I'm starting to understand how an addiction or a compulsion to use something is always on that person's mind.
They say that addiction to sugar is similar to being addicted to cocaine or heroin.
Really?
And it has the same effect on our brains. So it really is connected to addictions and the same process of overcoming and recovering from that addiction.
Okay. It was so amazing to have your initial support for what I was doing, because outside my immediate family and probably only my husband, you were the first person I told, and immediately I got this, oh, that's amazing, I just did that too. And my biggest fear was that when I told people that I was giving up sugar, they'd like, oh yeah, like everybody does that, like it's the latest craze. Are you on, are you paleo? Are you whatever?
Yeah.
So I thought, no, this is a sugar strike. This is not a diet. I am giving up sugar for a purpose beyond myself.
And like I said, I did mine 10 or 15 years ago. I guess it was more like 15 years ago. No, 10. And it was before it was cool to not eat sugar.
Yeah, you were so much cooler than I was.
I was ahead of the game.
So my parents called me yesterday because my article was published and they read it because they're awesome.
It was a great post.
Thank you very much. And but the first thing I said hello, and they're, so is this for real? Like, are you really not eating sugar? I was like, yeah. Did you read the article? Well, how long are you doing for? Did you read the article? I said, I'm going to do it for a year, or really however long it takes. It's not me that determines how long I'm omitting sugar from my life. It's the person I'm helping. It's their experience. And when they can overcome what they're going through, then I may consider reintroducing it. But that's a whole other story. It was just funny to hear their reaction. In fact, my dad said, oh, I thought that was just a literary device you were using. No, I write the truth, Dad.
Yeah.
So tell me a little more about, like, as you went on, how...
So I didn't tell the individual that I was doing this because I was afraid that I was going to fail. Because I knew me.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew how hard it was to not eat sugar. And so for the longest time, and I started and then I failed, and then I started, restarted, and then I failed again. I relapsed. And it was really, really difficult. And then when I saw that this person was really struggling, after having a discussion with them, that this was time for me to bring up my game. Mm-hmm. And there was no more relapsing because this person's welfare depended on it. Mm-hmm. Maybe their very life sometime, I don't know. But so then I disclosed and said that, this is what I'm doing. And if I can do this, will you do it with me with regards to your addictions? Mm-hmm. And they agreed. And they were really, I don't know what the word is, pleased mm-hmm. that their confidence was built, mm-hmm. that they knew that I was in it with them for a different addiction, and but that I was fully in, that I was not playing around anymore, and I stayed off sugar for about a year, mm-hmm. and it was the best year of my life.
Really?
Actually, yes. I mean, it was hard because at the beginning I didn't know what to do instead of. Uh-huh. I didn't know how to replace that addiction, and so we went through the journey together. And it became easier for my friend to not view pornography, and then eventually give it up completely. So it was a day of celebration.
That is amazing.
When we realized that we were on the same track and that we were doing it together, mm-hmm. and that there was a few times that he relapsed and felt bad about it, but we talked again and said that mm-hmm. relapsing is okay if you get back on your track.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, you brought up like 3 amazing points that I just want to recap. So one is when you're doing something like this, whether it's giving up sugar or pornography, you have to have a purpose bigger than yourself. And when you first started, you didn't tell anybody. And you didn't even tell the person that you were doing it for. But you needed to be committed to that person. Mm-hmm. And once you were committed, did it make a difference?
Absolutely. It gave me more strength, mm-hmm. it gave me more courage, it gave me the ability to be invested in it. Okay,
so you had that person, and then you had to be accountable. And keeping it to yourself doesn't work. No. And anyone who struggles with an addiction knows that they can't do it on their own. No. So it has to be out there. And the third thing is that you have to have something else to draw your attention. You can't just say, I'm not going to eat sugar and have nothing to replace it. I'm not going to watch pornography and have nothing else to fill your life. So
exactly.
This is why we're here.
Yeah, of course, my cooking show. You have to replace it with something healthier, whether it's a food addiction or whether it's a pornography addiction or drug addiction, it has to be replaced with something healthier.
Mm-hmm. And there's two other points I want to make. Like, just because I'm giving up sugar and just because you gave up sugar doesn't mean that our friends are going to be successful. I mean, it's still up to them, and we're not trying to trivialize it in any way. That is a huge habit to overcome.
Absolutely.
And they will relapse, just as you relapsed with the sugar. But knowing, like you said, your friend was so excited to have you in the game, like on board. And I think so many times the shame or the guilt overcomes, and they feel like they're just not making anybody happy. They're not only making themselves miserable, but they feel like they're making the rest of the world miserable too.
Yeah.
The people they love.
Yeah, and so when they know they have support,
Mm-hmm.
and support that understands, in addiction recovery programs in the community, they always have people working in those programs who are former addicts,
Mm-hmm.
because they understand, and they can help a person who's addicted to anything know that it's possible to overcome.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you've had some other experience with addiction recovery groups that you've volunteered for.
Sure. I volunteer with our church's addiction recovery program. I felt like a real phony trying to be a group leader for these individuals who had serious addictions. And then I remembered and recalled my experience 10 years ago of giving up sugar. And I had started to eat it again.
Mm-hmm.
And it had become a real problem again, and it was affecting my health. And so this time I decided that to be a group leader, I had to have the experiences that they were having so that we could be on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And I, again, went through overcoming my addiction to sugar because it reared its ugly head again over the years. And now I'm sugar-free. And the key to that was this program and finding replacements.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Something's coming to mind. I can't remember who said it or exactly what they said, but we have to get out of this mindset that there's the addicted and then there's us, right? We can all, and the reason I say that is not to feel like to try to compare myself to somebody who's going through something so much harder than I am, but to point out that there's always a way that you can reach out to somebody.
Exactly.
Because you can empathize on some level.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us, I mean, the first step of the addiction program, it's based on the Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program. And the first step is recognizing and admitting that your life has become unmanageable.
Okay.
And so every one of us has experienced that, whether it's through our finances, through managing our finances, through the foods that we eat, the actions that we take. We have all experienced it. Mind you, some are more serious levels than being addicted to a chocolate bar.
Mm-hmm.
But if it leads to your life being unmanageable, if you're hiding and shoveling chocolate or sugar in your mouth all the time,
I'm thinking about my chocolate chips right over here.
If you've got a secret stash somewhere,
Yeah.
that's pointing to your life becoming unmanageable.
Okay. Well, this has been amazing, Bonnie. So just before we get into the actual making of this banana bread, answer two questions for me. And the first is, how has working with or walking through with someone who's been addicted to a serious addiction helped you? And the second is, what advice, in very short sentences, would you give to parents who have just discovered or have been working for a little while and realized that, no, this isn't something that's just going away?
So question number one, I have realized that overcoming an addiction is not an easy thing, that there will be relapses. But if somebody an individual has support from someone who can understand through going through their own thing, that it makes it much easier. It makes them not feel alone, and it makes them feel that they're not a horrible person because they have a weakness, and that it is a problem that they can overcome with the proper and correct strength, support, and steps.
Okay.
Second question.
Oh, what advice do you give to parents?
Love them. love them unconditionally. If you have something that you can go through with them, disclose to them, share with them the idea that you have. Make sure they understand that you're not trivializing.
Try to say that again.
Their experience, but that you want to be in it with them. And again, I can't say love them enough. That's the most important thing. Love them and let them know, no matter what, that you're on their side.
Thanks so much. Let's deal with this banana bread now.
All right. So this has been one of my go-to recipes. It's so simple and it has absolutely no sugar or sugar substitutes in it. It's just banana, some kind of nut butter, coconut flour, and some eggs, and a few spices in that. But it's great. It's easy. My whole family loves it, and they don't know that there's absolutely no sugar in it. Of course, I tell them, but and it's so easy to make. So all you need is 4 ripe bananas, half a cup of
giving us the whole recipe. Keep going.
half a cup of seed butter, and I'm sensitive to almond butter, so I have to use seed butter.
Okay.
Half a cup of coconut flour, and then, like I said, some eggs, and 4 eggs, some cinnamon, vanilla, and baking powder and baking soda.
Awesome.
And it's great.
I can't wait to taste it.
All right.
And I will post the recipe for this at ParentsAware.info, and you can see our video there, as well as my post about why I have chosen to give up sugar for a friend who is struggling with addiction.
Perfect.
Cooking adventures.
We should do this once a week.
Did you put all the butter in?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there was too much.
What?
Oh.
There's never too much butter. Butter's not on my list of things I have to give up.